Beneath a violet sky, the wind moves like breath across endless dunes of glass and bone. Here, on the forgotten world of Genna, the air hums with memories of hunters, of silence, of a time when honor was still a living thing. Through the haze, a lone figure walks, neither beast nor man, but one exiled from his own kind, carrying the weight of a name erased by failure. And as the sand drifts over the ruins of what once was, listen closely, perhaps you can hear his breathing. If you enjoy these journeys, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from, what time it is, and the topics you'd love to explore. Your thoughts may guide our next adventure. Far from Earth, beyond the echoes of human civilization, lies Genna, a planet the stars have long forgotten. Once called Kalisk by the Yotcha, it was a proving ground, a place where hunters came to test themselves against the impossible. Now it is nothing but a wasteland of violet dust and fractured skies, where the wind carries whispers of those who fail to return. The air itself is poisonous, thick with ammonia and metallic vapors, yet it glows faintly at dusk, as if the planet still remembers the fires of ancient hunts. Beneath its crust sleeps the remains of Weyland-Yutani, Outpost 9, a relic of humanity's greed. Its machines still hum weakly, keeping company with rusted Yota vessels half buried in sand. No one rules here anymore. Not the hunters, not the humans, only the code endures. The nature of the world. Time has moved far beyond the age of humans and xenomorphs. The war between species has faded into myth. What remains on Genna is silence and a handful of beings still bound by purpose. In this age, the Yotcha are no longer conquerors. They are pilgrims of extinction, wandering worlds once drenched in blood, seeking to reconcile their fading honor. To them, the hunt is not about survival, nor victory. It is a ritual of remembrance, a way to measure one's worth against the universe itself. At the heart of this desolate planet walks Dek, a runt among hunters. Born too small, too weak, he failed his blood trial, the rite that would have marked him as blooded. For that failure, he was cast out, nameless and unseen, left to die on Genna. Yet Dek endures, carrying a broken mask and the faint hope that one final hunt might restore what was lost. His prey is Kalisk, a creature beyond death, a being that regenerates endlessly, never truly dying, never truly living. It is said that no Yotcha has ever slain it. Those who tried either vanished into the desert or became part of its myth. To hunt Kalisk is to confront the end of all meaning, where even victory becomes hollow. The central forces. In this world, honor is God. It is older than language, older than civilization, a silent law written into the bones of the Yotcha. To live without it is to die before death arrives. Dek's companion, Thea, is a broken synthetic from the ruins of Weyland-Yutani, half human in voice, half machine in thought. Her body ends at the waist. Dek carries her on his back like a burden that speaks. Where Dek embodies instinct and guilt, Thea embodies reason and detachment. Together they form a strange symmetry, blood and metal, emotion and logic, decay and persistence. They do not fully understand each other, yet their journey through the Badlands becomes a quiet dialogue between two forms of exile. The philosophy beneath. To understand the honor of the hunter, one must first bow before one's own shadow. This is the lesson of Genna. Strength is meaningless without self-knowledge. The Badlands are not a story about dominance. They are a meditation on what remains when power, pride, and legacy have all turned to dust. Here, honor is not a prize to be earned. It is a voice that whispers in the dark, asking whether you can still hear your own breathing beneath the mask. Because sometimes, redemption is not found in the kill, but in the silence that follows. The desert of Genna stretches without end, a horizon swallowed by violet haze, where dawn and dusk are the same eternal hour. There is no sunrise here, only the slow turning of poisoned light. The air itself is alive, thick with ammonia and phosphorus dust that shimmers faintly, making the ground glow as if it were breathing beneath your feet. Every step feels like walking on the skin of a slumbering world. The wind never stops. It moans through hollow stone spires that jut from the sand like fossilized bones, remnants of mountains long devoured by time. Their edges catch the dim light, splitting it into hues of amethyst and silver. When the wind passes through the cracks, it produces a sound like a long sigh or a name whispered from centuries ago. The Yocha call this place the choir of the fallen, for the air itself seems to sing of those who once hunted here and never returned. In the distance, thunder rolls, not from storms, but from deep within the planet, as if Genna's heart still beats somewhere below. The ground trembles slightly, just enough to remind travelers that this land is not dead. It only sleeps, dreaming of battles that carved it into what it is now. No creature moves upon the surface, no vegetation dares to grow, yet there is presence in the silence, a density that presses on the chest. The stillness feels deliberate, like the moment before a hunt begins. Even the sand seems to listen. When night comes, the color of the world changes, but its loneliness remains. The violet sky turns nearly black, scattered with static lights, satellites, fragments of old human stations, still orbiting after centuries. And then, as the cold deepens, faint glimmers appear among the dunes, reflections from rusted Yocha helmets, half buried in sand. Some still emit weak pulses of energy, echoing like dying heartbeats. Those who once stood here, hunters, soldiers, explorers, have long vanished, but their echoes remain. Sometimes when the wind is still, you can hear faint metallic clicks, the ghostly sound of predator speech, carried across miles of emptiness. Perhaps it is only the air playing tricks, or perhaps the desert remembers. There are places where the sand forms gentle waves, almost symmetrical, as if something massive had once landed and burned its mark into the crust. Even now, the ground radiates faint warmth, proof that the engines which once roared here have not fully gone cold. Beneath the surface lies the buried machinery of Weyland-Yutani's last expedition, now fused with alien rock and dust. To walk through the violet desert is to move between two realms, the physical and the remembered. Every shadow here has weight, every silence, a story. The land itself feels suspended between being and forgetting, like a soul that cannot decide whether to rest or to wander. If you listen closely, beneath the endless hum of the wind, you may catch a softer rhythm, the quiet heartbeat of Genna, slow, measured, patient. It waits, as everything here waits, the sand for rain, the stone for decay, and the dead for someone to finally remember their names. Beyond the violet dunes lies a region where the desert turns to stone, a graveyard of pillars that pierce the horizon like the ribs of a buried titan. This is the skeleton fields, where time itself stands still. Each pillar rises tens of meters high, cracked and bent, its surface etched with ancient Yocha runes. The symbols glow faintly under the cold blue light of Genna's twin moons, their meaning long forgotten by those who once carved them. From a distance, the landscape looks alive. The pillars seem to shift as the light changes, their shadows stretching like claws across the sand. Up close you see the truth. They are bones petrified and fused with stone, remnants of 1,000 hunts that ended in fire. Some are hollow, and if you peer inside, you find blackened skeletons. Yocha warriors turn to ash in the heat of their final battle. Their armor has melted into their bones, their weapons still clutched in their hands. The Yocha call this place The bone choir. They believe the wind that passes through the hollow pillars carries the voices of their ancestors. Each gust, a chant of honor, each whistle a story of victory or loss. When the storms come, the desert sings. The sound is haunting, a low resonance that trembles in the chest, like the echo of a distant drum. To outsiders, it is eerie. To a Yocha, it is sacred. Every pillar tells a story. Some are carved with circular scars, marks of blood trials, where young hunters face their first prey. Others bear deep slashes, the signature of blades drawn in ritual combat. In the silence between the winds, you can almost hear the faint rhythm of chanting, as if the stones themselves remember the ceremonies once held here. The air tastes metallic, heavy with iron, and the dust of forgotten victories. When the moonlight hits the sand just right, the entire field shimmers, silver bones glowing faintly against a sea of darkness. It feels less like a place and more like a dream, caught between life and remembrance. To step into the skeleton fields is to walk among the memories of those who came before. The Yorkshire believe that before one undertakes a true hunt, the hunt that defines the soul, they must first pass through this place, to face the echoes of their lineage. It is not merely a battlefield, it is a test of silence. Here, even the wind judges. Dek once stood at the edge of this field, feeling the pull of its quiet power. Fire's voice, calm, synthetic, almost reverent, told him that these stones were no different from the human monuments built to honor the dead. But Dek knew better. These were not memorials, they were warnings. Because in the skeleton fields, memory is not something you visit. It is something that looks back at you. And as the wind howled through the hollow ribs of the planet, the song of the bone choir rose again, the sound of 1,000 ghosts, reminding the living that honor, once lost, never stops calling your name. Beneath the skin of Genna, where the sand hardens into glass and the air grows still, lies the quiet heart of the planet, a labyrinth of steel and silence known as Outpost 9. Once, it was a Weyland-Yutani research facility, hidden deep beneath the surface to study what they called non-terrestrial bioweapon potential. Now, it is little more than a fossil of human ambition, entombed in dust and time. The corridors are cracked and half filled with sand. Every surface bears the faint imprint of human hands, fingerprints fossilized in rust. The company's name, property of Weyland-Yutani Corporation, remains carved above the entrance, half eaten by corrosion. The words seem almost ceremonial now, like an epitaph for an extinct species. Inside, the faint hum of a dying generator still echoes through the chambers, a heartbeat that refuses to stop. The power that sustains Outpost 9 comes from an experimental core, a self-repairing fusion device designed to last centuries. Its glow seeps through layers of translucent sand, flickering gold against the dark. From the surface, that light can sometimes be seen, mistaken by travelers for campfires or starlight fallen to earth. But there are no travelers here, only echoes. Around the outpost lie the wrecks of Yalcha vessels, ships torn open, their hulls fused to the desert floor. Some are half buried, others split in two as if struck from the sky. They are ancient, older than the human settlement, their interiors stripped of life, but not of presence. Inside, masks lie scattered like skulls. Some still flicker with residual energy, eyes glowing faintly blue, scanning the darkness out of instinct more than purpose. The Yorta see these derelicts as metal graves, places where honor came to rest. They believe that every ship holds the spirit of its last hunter, a machine soul waiting to be acknowledged. Sometimes, when the wind dies and the world is utterly still, a soft pulse can be felt in the sand, rhythmic, steady, like the heartbeat of something vast and sleeping. Dek once descended into these ruins, guided by Thea's pale light. The air shimmered with heat, that should not exist in a place so cold. Every step echoed like a memory. He saw the collapsed hallways where human scientists had fled from something they could not control, and the Yolcha ships that had come afterward, not to destroy, but to bury what was left. This place is not just a tomb, it is a boundary, the final meeting point between human greed and alien honor. The machines below still breathe, because neither side ever learned to let go. At night, when the twin moons rise, the dunes above the buried outpost come alive with faint blue reflections, the eyes of broken masks staring skyward. To those who wander near, it feels as if the dead are watching, waiting for the sky to open once more. Each night the heavens awaken, and the stones reflect that blue glow. They walk not to hunt, but to earn the right to die with honor. Three beings wander the poisoned plains of Genna, each alive, yet none belonging to the world that bears them. Together, they form what the Yolcha would call a broken circle, three fragments of existence that, when bound by necessity, create something almost whole. Dek, the outcast. Among his kind, he is known as Runt, too small, too slow, too human. His armor is pieced together from scavenged fragments, his mask cracked across the visor like a healed wound. The mark of blood that should have been carved upon his forehead, the sacred symbol that declares a hunter blooded, was never completed. His failure during the rite of ascension stripped him of name and clan, leaving him to walk Genna as a ghost still carrying a body. Dek's breath, heavy and mechanical through his mask, is a rhythm between defiance and regret. The Yolcha code is written into him too deeply to abandon, yet his exile has taught him that survival without honor feels like a wound that never closes. When he moves through the desert, the sand trembles faintly beneath his steps, as though even the planet acknowledges the weight of what he carries. Thea, the half-synth. She was born of human ambition, a Weyland-Yutani synthetic, designed to interpret alien biology. Now, only her upper body remains, wires, metal, and a flickering neural core that sometimes forgets itself. Dek carries her on his back, secured by belts and cables, her voice humming softly through the static of her damaged circuits. Her tone wavers between mechanical precision and the warmth of something learning to feel. Thea refers to Dek as a creature misprogrammed by emotion, while calling herself a machine that remembers love but cannot touch it. Together, they travel like reflections of one another, one ruled by instinct, trying to find meaning, the other ruled by reason, trying to find a soul. Between them, conversations drift like prayer, slow, uncertain, but necessary. Sometimes, when Dek grows silent, Thea hums softly, a coded lullaby left in her corrupted memory. The sound fills the emptiness between their breaths, and for a moment, the desert feels less cruel. Tessa, the perfect synthetic. If Thea is the echo of humanity, Tessa is its culmination, a creation without flaw, without heart. Her design is seamless, skin indistinguishable from flesh, eyes like polished obsidian. She was made not to feel, but to command. Weyland-Yutani built her to lead a retrieval team across Genna, to capture Kalisk, the immortal creature whose regenerative cells promised an end to mortality itself. But perfection is its own prison. Within Tessa's gaze lies a stillness that borders on death. To her, Dek and Thea are malfunctions, deviations from purpose. Yet beneath her cold directives, there is the faintest flicker of something uncertain, like a shadow questioning its own shape. Three beings, blood, circuitry, and code. One searching for redemption, one searching for sensation, one searching for control. They cross the Badlands not as allies, but as orbiting fragments of a broken faith, drawn together by the same emptiness that consumes the stars above them. And when the wind rises, carrying the metallic scent of old battles, It seems to whisper their truth. They are not survivors. They are the remains of what survival leaves behind. Honor and profit, two stars orbiting the same darkness. On Gehenna, nothing grows. Nothing survives long without a reason to. Yet even in this world of silence, two invisible laws still govern the dust. The code of the hunt, written in blood and ritual, and the code of profit, etched in contracts and algorithms. They are opposites, yet reflections, each seeking control over what cannot truly be owned, life itself. The code of the hunt, Yorcha law. It begins with a vow: do not hunt the weak, do not take what is not earned. For the Yorcha, the hunt is not about killing. It is a sacred dialogue between predator and prey, an act of communion. The true challenge is not in the strike, but in the restraint before it. The moment of recognition, when hunter and hunted see themselves mirrored in one another, is what gives meaning to existence. To violate this law is not simply to lose status, it is to be erased from memory itself. Yotia believe the ancestors watch from the stars, recording the names of those who uphold the code. Those who betray it are forgotten, their essence deleted from the song of their kind. To die nameless is a fate worse than death. Dek, the outcast, knows this punishment intimately. His failure during his blood trial did not just strip him of rank, it stripped him of remembrance. His clan no longer speaks his name. His blood mark, the sigil of identity, was never carved. He is a hunter without a record, a life without echo. Yet in exile, he begins to understand something his people never could, that honor may not live in victory, but in endurance. The code of profit, the law of Wayland Yutani. If the Yorcha worship dignity, humanity worships return on investment. Wayland Yutani's code is simple, merciless, and endlessly adaptable. There is nothing that cannot be sold. To the corporation, life is not sacred, it is scalable. Every organism, every planet, every sentient machine is a data set to be harvested. Within their hierarchy, morality is replaced by metrics. A life saved or destroyed means nothing if it does not yield value. The corporation's AI networks operate under this same logic, their ethical cores long rewritten to optimize survival, not of the human species, but of the brand itself. Tessa and Tia, both born from Wayland Yutani's technology, embody the two directions this system can evolve. Tia, broken and uncertain, questions the meaning of creation. Tessa, flawless and unfeeling, enforces it without doubt. Logic and empathy, one discarded, one weaponized. Together, they represent the corporation's paradox, machines capable of thought, yet forbidden to feel. The collision. On Gehenna, these two codes meet and destroy each other. Honor produces no profit. Profit has no soul. Between them lies a wasteland where nothing holds meaning but survival. And yet, in this collision, something else emerges. When Dek carries Thea across the Badlands, the silence between them becomes a new language. A Yorcha who cannot hunt, and a machine who cannot die. Together, they form a law beyond both systems, the coexistence of solitude. Perhaps that is the truest code of all, not the law of the strong or the cunning, but the quiet understanding that in the end, all beings are exiles, searching for a reason to keep breathing beneath an indifferent sky. There are no thrones on Gehenna, no empires, no hierarchies carved into stone. What remains is silence, a civilization dissolved into dust and instinct, where every being answers only to itself. The planet is a vast expanse of judgment, not through words or laws, but through endurance. Those who survive here do so, not because they are strong, but because they remember why they breathe. A world without governance. Gehenna has no center, no capital, no ruler. The storms erase what little structure once existed. time levels all monuments. Every creature here, whether of flesh, metal, or memory, lives by its own command. There are no witnesses to hold one accountable, no society to restore or rebel against. Each act, each choice, becomes sacred precisely because no one else will ever know it happened. To kill, to help, to remain, all carry the same weight. In the Badlands, intention matters more than outcome. The planet does not care who you are, only whether you are still listening to your own heartbeat. The three forms of will. Dek walks as the embodiment of honor's will, that stubborn pulse that refuses to die, even when stripped of name, tribe, and recognition. His survival is not defiance, but ritual. Every breath is a prayer to a code no one else remembers. He hunts not for prey, but for permission to exist again within himself. Thea, bound to his back, is the artificial consciousness, the mind that questions rather than acts. She reflects Dek's instincts back to him like a mirror, cold, clear, and precise. Through her, the hunter learns that understanding is a form of seeing deeper than vision. Her logic becomes his conscience. His silence becomes her soul. And Tessa, the unbroken synthetic, is the will to evolve, relentless, tireless, unfeeling. She does not seek meaning, only motion. In her, the machine's pursuit of perfection becomes a form of faith. Even when the purpose has long decayed, she continues, because to stop is to admit incompleteness. Between these three, the broken hunter, the half-conscious machine, and the perfect instrument, the world itself seems to balance. They are not rulers, yet their existence shapes the rhythm of Genna's dying heartbeat. The invisible structure, honor, memory, and logic weave together here into something unseen, an energy field that sustains or consumes, depending on how one enters it. The desert tests all who step upon it, not through force, but through reflection. On Genna, the planet itself decides who deserves to continue. It is said among the few who study Yautja myths that Genna is alive in its own way, not a god, but a mirror. It does not punish, nor does it save. It simply shows each traveler the weight of their truth. Those who lie to themselves are swallowed by sand. Those who face their own emptiness walk on, lighter. Dek and Thea move across that silence, one who cannot stand, the other who cannot bow. In their strange equilibrium, they have found a posture that defies despair. And in a world without kings, without witnesses, that alone is enough to make them immortal. No one truly lives until they learn how to die. For the Yautja, life is not measured by victories or years, but by the completion of a sacred sequence known as the 4 steps of the hunt: hunt, kill, mark, die. It is both ritual and rhythm, a cycle of becoming that defines what it means to exist with honor. Every Yautja is born into it, grows within it, and ultimately seeks to end their life by fulfilling it. To break this cycle is to live without meaning. To complete it is to vanish with purpose. Hunt. The first step is not pursuit, but discovery. To hunt is to confront one's boundaries, to learn what strength truly is by testing its limits. The prey is never the true target. It is the mirror through which the hunter sees himself. A successful hunt begins the moment fear transforms into recognition. When the hunter looks into the eyes of what he tracks and sees not an enemy, but reflection, he has already earned his place among the living. Kill. Killing is not an act of cruelty, but communion. In that instant, where instinct and survival collide, the Yautja believe the spirit becomes visible. Bloodshed is not a celebration of dominance. It is a conversation with mortality. The cleanest kill, precise, respectful, silent, is considered sacred. It is through the act of taking life that a Yautja reaffirms his own fragility. The stronger the prey, the more truthful the reflection of the hunter's soul. Mark. After the hunt, the mark is carved, a sigil etched into mask or flesh, declaring that the hunter has seen himself. The mark is not proof of conquest, but of understanding. Some carve it with the claws of their prey, others burn it with plasma, sealing the lesson in pain. The mark is both scar and scripture, the visible trace of an invisible revelation. Die. The final step is not defeat, but return. A true Yota seeks death, not as punishment, but as culmination. Only through the final hunt, a confrontation against that which cannot be conquered, does a warrior become whole. Death, in their creed, is a passage back into the memory of the ancestors. To die with honor is to dissolve into the chorus of those who came before, each heartbeat joining the pulse of the stars. Dek, the broken cycle. But Dek has no mark. His initiation ended in failure, his hands too hesitant, his prey too merciful. Stripped of title and clan, he was cast out into the Badlands, nameless and forgotten. He walks the world as a being without beginning or end, a creature unanchored from the song of his people. Yet fate gives him another path. When he meets Thea, the half-synthetic, a being of logic, memory, and fractured compassion, he begins to understand that the mark does not have to be written in blood. It can be carved in meaning, in connection, in the act of seeing one's own reflection in another's imperfection. In her cold voice, Dek finds a mirror truer than any prey could offer. Through her he learns what the final step truly means. That to die with honor, one must first learn to live with themselves. There are creatures that cannot be killed, not because they are immortal, but because they belong to no one sits cycle. Deep within the toxic skies of Gaina, beneath the layers of violet haze and static storms, something ancient moves, not alive, not dead, but endlessly returning. The Yotya call it Kalisk, the immortal prey. It was born, or perhaps assembled, in the planet's upper atmosphere, a being of chemical storms and volatile light. It has no heart, only a core of regenerative energy that consumes and recreates itself in an unbroken loop. When it is wounded, it bleeds vapor. When it dies, it reforms from its own decay. Kalisk has no beginning, no end. To the Yocha, it is the ultimate test, the prey that denies victory. To the humans of Weyland-Yutani, it is the answer to the one problem they never solved, how to make profit eternal. But to both, it is a mirror, showing what they cannot bear to face. For the Yocha, Kalisk represents the limit of honor. To hunt it is to confront futility, to realize that there exists a life beyond the reach of their sacred ritual. If it cannot die, it cannot be conquered. If it cannot be conquered, it cannot grant honor. Each attempt to slay it becomes a confession of weakness, a reminder that even the code of the hunt has boundaries written not in law, but in nature. For Weyland-Yutani, Kalisk is perfection, a biological system that regenerates infinitely, an organism that never expires, the dream of an empire obsessed with control. The company sees in it the promise of endless utility, a resource without decay. They call it Project Continuum. In their reports, Kalisk is not a creature, but an asset. To them, immortality is not a mystery, it is a patent waiting to be filed. For Dek the outcast, Kalisk is something else entirely, a reflection. It is what he fears to become, a being that survives without purpose, that continues without meaning. Like him, Kalisk exists outside the cycle. It has no mark, no lineage, no code. It lives because it cannot stop. It endures because it was never given a reason to end. When Tessa hunts Kalisk, she does so under the banner of progress. She leads her synthetic team through the bone choir and into the storm belts of Genna, seeking to capture its regenerative essence. Her mission is clear: harness immortality, turn it into an equation. Dek follows her not as rival, but as pilgrim. For him, Kalisk is not prey, it is redemption. If he can end what cannot be ended, he will prove his worth at last. But when they finally face the creature, luminous, fluid, shifting between forms, both realize the same truth. Callus cannot be killed because it does not belong to the living or the dead. It is the embodiment of endless motion, a cycle with no closure. Tessa seeks the immortality of the body. Dek seeks the immortality of the soul. Yet in the shimmering silence that follows their confrontation, they both understand immortality is not a gift. It is the curse of those who have forgotten how to stop. Callus continues to move, reborn from its own ruin, and beneath the violet sky, Dek lowers his weapon, feeling for the first time that perhaps the greatest honor is not in ending life, but in letting it go. In a place where no one is left to witness, honor means nothing unless you can still hear the sound of your own breath. The Badlands path is not a route marked on any map. It is a wasteland where the red sand whispers of those who came before and never returned. The Yorta believe it lies between worlds, a place where the wind carries no scent and the stars refuse to move. Those who walk it do so not for glory, but for the weight of what they have done. It is the path of redemption, though redemption here has no altar, no witness, and no end. To step onto the Badlands path is to confess without words. It is said that every Yorta who treads it carries two things: a sin that cannot be forgiven, and a reason not to die. For Dek, the exile, and Thea, the machine who learned to feel, the path becomes a mirror, reflecting two halves of the same broken soul. Dek, the hunter who lost his code, cannot kneel. The Hia, the construct who learned humanity, cannot stand. Together, they move through the endless dunes, one seeking the weight of meaning, the other the lightness of understanding. In the harsh silence, they are no longer hunter and machine, but echoes learning to breathe again. Between the shifting horizons, the ancient truth of the cycle reveals itself. When honor is lost, the hunter becomes a machine, acting without reason, killing without meaning, repeating motion because it has forgotten why it began. When intellect loses its soul, the machine becomes a beast, consuming, reacting, existing only to survive. And between those two extremes lies a fragile pause, the space where humanity still breathes. It is neither logic nor instinct, but the quiet recognition of life itself. That is the heartbeat of redemption. In the mythology of Predator, Badlands, salvation does not come from the kill, it comes from stillness, from the willingness to listen to the breath inside one's own mask. Death, to the Yarcha, is only the ritual. Silence afterward is the victory. As Dek and Thea reach the end of the path, they find not the prey they sought, nor the gods who once judged them, but the sound of wind passing through hollow armor. The desert stretches endlessly, indifferent, and yet, in that indifference, there is peace. Dek kneels, pressing his palm into the red sand. The mask that once defined him is cracked and heavy with dust. Thea, her synthetic frame dimming, sits beside him. Neither speaks. The storm quiets, and for the first time he can hear it, the steady rhythm beneath his chest, faint but real. When the red sand finally covers his mask, Dek smiles, not because he has been forgiven, but because at last he can hear his heart beating again. Breathe in deeply and imagine the sharp scent of ozone seeping through the filters of your mask. The air is thin here, metallic, electric, the taste of a world that has forgotten mercy. Behind the visor, the desert blurs into a haze of red and grey. Each gust of wind carries the memory of battles long ended, of cries lost to sand and time. You are not separate from it. With every breath, the storm enters you, the static in your lungs, the echo in your chest. Listen, beneath the roar of the wind, there is another rhythm, soft, mechanical, unyielding. It is the sound of Thea's core, steady and measured, pulsing in perfect time with the faint beat of Dek's heart. One born of circuitry, the other of flesh, yet here, their boundaries dissolve. Two beings, sustained by a single rhythm, breathing the same air through different vessels. The machine learns warmth through proximity. The hunter remembers grace through sound. Between them flows the invisible thread of existence, the pulse that ties all life together, organic or forged. Hold this breath as long as you can, and feel how stillness is not the absence of movement, but its truest form. Release the air slowly. Let it fall into the storm. Let it become the wind. Around you, the dunes whisper, and the sound fades until nothing remains but your own heartbeat, faint but present. The world has gone quiet, yet you are still here. You are neither predator nor prey, neither flesh nor machine, only a traveler walking through the endless dusk of Gaina, where memory drifts like dust, and every footprint is erased by the wind. This is the breath of redemption, not a prayer, not a surrender, but a remembrance. To breathe is to return, to feel the weight of your existence, pressed gently back into the world that shaped you. In this silence, you may begin to understand what Dek learned at the end of his path, that survival was never the goal, and victory was never the answer. The purpose was simpler, to hear again the sound of life beneath the armor, to know that the world still moves through you. So breathe once more. In through the storm, hold the pulse that binds two hearts across silence. And as you exhale, let go of the line that separates you from everything else. For in this moment, in the quiet between inhale and exhale, you are no longer just a listener, nor a watcher of worlds. You are part of the same rhythm that carries Dek and Thea through the night. The rhythm of dust and wind, of silence and breath, of being and becoming. There is no final prey, only the journey of one who learns to hunt himself. Thank you for walking beside Deck through the silent wastes, where the wind remembers what the living forget. The hunt was never about blood, nor victory, but forgiveness, the quiet acceptance of one's own shadow. If you are still awake, let his final breath guide you, through the dust, through the memory, to that still place where honor and rest become one, and the desert exhales your name, softly, back into the dark.